Yes, people, welcome back to the only YAHYAH with the one and only, the true YAHYAH, Chino Falaci. Today we're talking about Eddie Howe. And is it time for him to go? Or is Newcastle underachieving or did they overachieve last season? All this today on the only YAHYAH. But don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the page. Keep hitting the bell for notifications. Help me get to 1,000 subscribers quickly so I can keep bringing you great content going forward. So yeah, Eddie Howe and Newcastle, you already know how I feel about Eddie Howe. I think he's a good manager, but not for that level. I think if Eddie Howe was at an Everton, that would be a good fit. Or Eddie Howe at a Brentford or Wolves, that is a good fit. Or Nottingham Forest is a good fit. But for Newcastle, I don't think Eddie Howe is the right man. I just don't think that Eddie Howe, I'm not the guy who advocates for a man to lose his job. But what I do believe is there are certain levels that a team, if they want to aspire for certain things, and I don't think them wanting to be called the richest club in the world means that they want to not be playing European football. They're going after European quality type footballers. So they want to be playing that level of football. But Eddie Howe, tactically, isn't that manager. He's fought relegation. There's a reason why. It's crazy because Eddie Howe fought relegation with Bournemouth. But then people call Ole Gunnar Solskjaer school PE teacher, and the guy was second and third in the Premier League, quarterfinals, Champions League, final of Europa League. Like that's what you do when you're a manager, when you have players, and Eddie Howe isn't doing that with Newcastle. He went to the Champions League, yes, but then they came fourth in the Champions League. They got knocked out by City in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. They got knocked out by Chelsea in the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup. And this is a man who people say is better than Mauricio Pochettino, who's doing a better job than Eric Ten Hag, and that is a joke. You don't compare Eddie Howe with any of those managers. Those managers are a tier above this dude. And it's sad for me to say, but it's just true. Like not every doctor you can be a doctor, but that don't mean because you're the best pediatrician out there, or you're the best surgeon out there, or you're the best medical assistant out there, just because you have that certificate that says you can do it. It doesn't mean you're great at your job. And Eddie Howe, for me, is not great enough or good enough to be at that level where Newcastle fans think they are. And also, Newcastle fans are a bit delusional because if you really think about it, they are not the fourth best team in the Premier League. Just look at their front. Like, if we have to compare Newcastle's front three players to players in their positions, right? Let's look at it. So we start from left wing to striker to right wing, okay? We do left wing. Anthony Gordon, Harvey Barnes. Now let's name the top teams right now out there with wingers, okay? That we could select way before we select those two dudes. Doku, Grealish, Rashford, Garnacho, Martinelli, Trossard, Sterling, Modric, Human Son, okay? And then we look at strikers. Ollie Watkins, Rasmus Højlund, Erling Haaland, Julian Alvarez, Ivan Toney, Ollie Watkins, all those players better than Isaac. We have Bailey, Cole Palmer. You have Foden, Saka, all better than Almiron. So, and Jacob Murphy. Anthony, I think is better. Sancho, if he was at United, I think he's better. You understand? Like, there's so many players out there that are so many better. And what's sad to see is that these guys are being compared to this Kulusevski. How can I forget him? And these guys are being compared to this quality of forwards and these quality of guys. And it's not fair to them because they're just not up to that quality. And just like their manager, they're not up to that quality. You know what? I'm going to be honest. Tonali, okay, is probably the only player in Newcastle, I think, gets out of Newcastle and goes to play for a team in the top half of the Premier League, like a top 4 or 5 team in the Premier League. And that's not even me like talking crazy, because Bruno Guimaraes, good player, but he don't really get around the pitch that much. Tonali is that number 8 that could fit into any team in the top 6. And that's why I know Newcastle, with that buy, spending 80 million on him. Well, 55 million, sorry, let me be corrected, on him. 55 million pounds on him. It shows that they really want to take that step to another level. Okay, now we look at their statistics for the season. We see they've played 41 games, 28 in the Prem. They are 12-4-12 in the Premier League. They're averaging 1.43 points per game. They're 10th in the league. Their home record is 9-3-2-3, 29 points with that. And their away record is 3-2-9, 11 points with that. Goals against, 48, and goals for, 59. They're averaging 2.11 goals per game, and they're averaging 1.71 against them per game. So that gives them roughly the difference of around 11, if my math isn't incorrect. Their XG is 51 for goals for, and their XG against is 49. So there's thereabouts, their XG, they're thereabouts with both of them, which shows that they're not really doing that well. They're conceding just as much as they're scoring, just like Manchester United. Let me put it out there. And these are two teams that were in the top 4 last season. And this season, they've struggled a bit for form. The only difference is Manchester United, the quality of the players and coach has them where they are based on the low level of form. But then you have players, because of that quality, who can come up with moments of individual brilliance, just like other big clubs. Because Man City, the other day, beat Newcastle from Bernardo Silva taking the game on hand. When Man City beat Manchester United, Phil Foden took the game in his hand. They have moments of individual brilliance. And that's what makes great teams great. Not about them playing the most beautiful football, because Brighton plays the most beautiful football in the Premier League right now. Arsenal probably up there as well. But it is not as effective as Man City, who is a bit more pragmatic, or Liverpool, who plays lots of long balls and high intensity. So Newcastle has just hit a level that they can't surpass. They need to get a better manager, and they need to get better quality players. Why? Because when you want to take that step into the Premier League, into the top 4, especially what the teams now are doing and what they're going to do in the next couple of years to come, I think Newcastle's under a bit of pressure. They've also lost their sporting director to Manchester United. And this is my worry with him, because who did he give the job to do their due diligence on this man called Sandro Tonali? Now, for lots of y'all who don't know, Sandro Tonali has been suspended for 10 months for betting and gambling in Italy. Now, this is a serious charge, but in my opinion, there are a bit of some discrepancies in terms of how they've handled his situation and how they've handled Ivan Toney's situation. Not only did Ivan Toney get banned, I think, for like 8 months, but Ivan Toney was also not allowed to train with Brentford. Tonali is allowed to train with Newcastle. Now, both players were charged with similar offenses by similar federations. Both were betting not against their team to lose, but betting in in-game activities. So for people who bet tackles or stuff like that, that's what they would bet. 2.5 goals over or those kind of things. Never for their team to lose against their team to lose. They stopped him from training with Brentford, but allowed Tonali to train with Newcastle. And for me, that is a worry because they stopped one of the best strikers in England at the moment from training with his team, who they know would his presence at that ground would help his team. But then they allowed Tonali to train with Newcastle, who they know his presence benefits Newcastle. We need to find a way where we can always find commonality within these situations and talk about them and bring light to them so we can show the world that they are always handling similar situations differently based on who knows what the reason is. And we need to find that common ground where we deal. If you get caught betting against or for or whatever, you get caught betting, you get your 10 months ban, you can't train with your team, and that is it. You shouldn't be allowing Tonali to train with Newcastle, but Ivan Toney can't train with Brentford. YAHYAH can't train with Man City, but then YAHYAH Chino can train with Man United. You know, you have to find that way for us to not be able to put players in a situation where fans have to discuss why different players from different clubs, because of money, who knows, reason why they give Tonali 10 months and allow him to train with his team, but Ivan Toney can't train with his team. So let's find that common ground. This has been your boy, YAHYAH Chino, coming to your live today from Gold Coast, Australia. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the page. Hit the bell for notifications.